have been most banned against EVOS. If you could afford to throw those bans at them, I think you throw those bans.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be too surprised to see the Camille hit the bench as well. And the biggest thing coming into this game is, do Supermassive actually pick to take away now? In that first game, it felt like they were picking for themselves. They won their bottom lane, but they gave over all of the comfort. This time, you can afford to take some different choices here and actually look to take things from your opponents. And I'm not saying the Caitlyn or the Tahm Kench in the bottom lane, but I do look towards the rest of the map, perhaps even the Gangplank, something that's worth considering.
And the Camille banned away. Stark not going to get his hands on that one again. I imagine we'll see that trend continue through the entire series after his just about immaculate performance game 1, at least in terms of what he provided for the team. Karma going to be the last ban. Here we go, Kai'Sa locked in. Now I know this is something you're really excited about, Zyrene. Rusty, we've been talking about it a lot as well, but definitely a powerful start to the draft. We'll see how they round out the rest of the composition. And VCS, no hesitation for EVOS. They take that Trundle on the opposite side.
Ooh, I love me some Kai'Sa, especially somebody who can play it incredibly well. I expect him to be able to pop off on this champion, and we'll see what they draft around it, because Kai'Sa, despite how incredibly strong she is, she's even stronger in the right compositions.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the Kai'Sa's a great pick to go with a lot of tanks, so usually Leona is the support that you'll see with that. However, the Morgana's already been picked here on the opposite side, and I like what the VCS side have done by going for that Morgana, something that can lock you down very successfully. The Trundle doesn't have a lot of crowd control to follow that up, though.
One of the things I really like about the Morgana as well is that they don't have to ban the Thresh now, because Snowflower, they love banning that champion against him. You don't necessarily have to ban it, but it is a really good pick in conjunction with the Kai'Sa. And it's not that great against the Morgana, so we'll see what they end up going for here. Potentially still play it, though.
Now, though, Supermassive rounding out the rest of their draft with the Kindred once again. Feels like Stomage feels like this is a good matchup into the Trundle, wants to take it again, and GBM gets his hands on that Vladimir. We've seen how influential he can be. He was pretty good for the team in the previous game. I don't see any reason why they'd want to change that. I
do have my concerns for Supermassive's draft, though, already coming into this second game. The Kindred's place in the composition already feels very awkward. I know the Kai'Sa wants to dive into the backlines. The Vladimir also dives into the backlines, and often you'll see Kindred picked against Kai'Sa because you can deny her assassination. But what if they all dive and Stomage is just hanging out by himself in what used to be the front line? He's now the opposite side of the fight.
That should be a diving Kindred. Get in the front line with them.
Save your enemies.
Use all those little dashes forwards and hope you can find a backline.
We're going to have to see. It's going to take some, it's going to be important for the synergy of the team to see how they utilize the Kindred. We know it did okay in the early game.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it later on. I think that Stomage, he kept marking the Camille and the Trundle, which had 1 death apiece, whereas the Ezreal had like 5 deaths on him. And so when you're playing Kindred, marking the person who's kind of quote-unquote feeding or giving up a lot of kills, that's the person who's going to give you multiple stacks. So one of my favorite things is playing against a proxy Singed, because he's not just giving you kills, and even when he's worth like 70 gold, you're constantly getting stacks from him. So just keep marking the person that you can kind of get free stacks off of is what I want to see from Stomage here.
Last game that was Slay, dying a lot, still contributed so much to the team, no doubt there. Ooh. But Victor now going to get locked in up against the Vladimir. This is a pick we have not seen this tournament.
Yeah, not too bad in the laning phase, of course, against the Vladimir, and something that we'll have to explore with him is how he uses his itemization, even his Keystone Masteries. There's a lot of debates about what the best option is for the Victors, whether it's the Fleet Footwork or you go for the Airy, so we'll have to continue to see.
Yeah, the Fleet Footwork, a lot of that was just for the laning phase and the healing up against the Vladimir. I can see it because you constantly trade Qs back and forth. You'll kind of soak up with the shield against the Vladimir's Q, and you'll be able to heal yourself. So I expect it to be the Fleet Footwork, personally, and go for something along the lines of a Lich Bane and maybe Seraph's Embrace.
Shen now locked as the final pick for EVOS. Going over to Stark on the top side of the map, a little less of an explosive top side with Ornn and Shen, but Stark pretty much plays every top lane matchup like he's explosive, does always look to go in there, so we're going to have to see how Fabulous responds.
I really like this because it does actually play very well into the Ornn. I wonder if it's the Conqueror Shen that we saw Fabulous use earlier in the tournament. Does a lot of damage to the Ornn and busts through that shield very quickly.
It is a scaling Keystone, however. You could go the Grasp of the Undying and look to control the game from level 1 through that top lane if you want the Trundle to be aggressive. And again, that's a choice that they can make. Lulu's the other pick that we didn't really mention here for the side of Supermassive. We mentioned the dive potential out of a Vladimir and a Kai'Sa. Well, I have a feeling now that they're just going to be playing front to back, and that shield, that ultimate utility, will be very contextual here. Otherwise, he's just sitting next to his Lulu, dealing out the damage.
And I've just heard 3 out of 5 champions were not played by the side of EVOS in their spring split. Yes, Shen was played as support, but this is the first time we're seeing Stark get his hands on it. Gonna have to see how comfortable he is here, because we know the Camille is a comfort pick. Not available this time around as both compositions round out. Question is, will Stark once again be the center of attention?
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It's not the Conqueror, it's not the Grasp, it's the Kleptomancy Shen. So it's the pull through of the Q, smack him, get some gold from the Ornn, constantly trade. And so once again, I think this is going to be focused on the top side early, but because they have Caitlyn Morgana, a lane that can constantly shove, you could go for some dives down bottom. And if Snowflower gets behind on the Lulu, kind of becomes a free bag of gold.
Absolutely does. You talked about wanting to always hit the weak point, hit the feeder. Maybe they can take down the lure, turn her into a feeder in this game. It is game 2, ladies and gentlemen. EVOS coming in up against Supermassive. Already down 1 point for Supermassive. Can't afford to keep falling. See how they fire back in this game. Now, we've talked a little bit about what EVOS want to do. You say Shen, get him on the top side, take that to the bottom side. Opposite side for Supermassive. How do they play out this early game?
The Supermassive on the opposite side, they don't have the strongest early game through their laning specifically. Stomaged, of course, we mentioned that a Kindred in the last game tends to be a little bit low health, has to find some creative pathing. Of course, GBM on the Vladimir has Ignite, but it's Unsealed Spellbook this time to swap that one over to the Ghost or the Teleport. So it's not about that early laning, it's about surviving it. But you know how difficult that is to do sometimes against the constant pressure cooker of their opponents.
Yeah, I actually really like this from GBM. I thought that the Spellbook would be superior to the area in the previous game, but he gets to swap to TP. You can have 1-3-1 pressure, especially against somebody like a Shen who's going to split push. And Warzone now, more defensive, has himself the barrier so he doesn't get blown up by the Vladimir, and also has the Airy now. So he's going to look for some trades early, and he'll win those, but later on, the Vladimir does scale up to a point where he's very hard to deal with.
And we saw GBM hit that point. Unfortunately, the team was dismantled before he could really put that to good use. But the other lane we have to check in on is the bottom side of the map. Zeitnon Snowflower, the Kai'Sa Lulu lane.
Yeah, I really like, since Kai'Sa's builds are all over the place, I really like to kind of predict where the build is going to go based on the small subtleties I see. And I think that this is going to be a crit very early, not a Rage Blade. I think this might be an Essence Reaver because Fleet Footwork scales off your bonus AD. If you're going for the double on-hit build of the Runaan's Hurricane after you get yourself the Rage Blade, this is a better kind of build for an Essence Reaver into an Infinity Edge or into a Runan. It's just more critical strike chance.
Definitely a fair assessment there based off the Keystone of choice, but also just being against the Caitlyn Morgana makes it very difficult to navigate with any other Keystone. Lulu doesn't have the sustain there as well. And one thing you are seeing from this bottom lane while they are on your screen is constant aggression, pushing that first wave out. When you're against the Caitlyn and Morgana only has one spell up and available, you walk at them. It's the only way that you can navigate this as a Lulu and a Kai'Sa is utilize the early damage that you have from your champions and not the range that you have.
Yeah, and of course you can see right now a much more even laning phase. Last time the game had already had a kill. We already saw, you know, the Taric and Ezreal go in, find that aggressive play. But as always, it feels like topside does have to remain a point that we keep our eye on. Any other matchup, I might say, hey, these two top lane tank players, they'll probably just farm it up. But Fabulous and Stark, I think, are two guys who are not going to be content to just sit there, especially not Stark. But bottom lane,
what are you looking for?
Looking to ward.
Oh, Snowflower could now be in trouble with the command for the flash. Nice flash on the binding, though. Patience there to come out. Rono P is going to make it out. Summoner spells traded on both sides. Still made cheater, but he's a little bit late. Scuttlecrab already down, but very close to resulting in first blood there.
Yeah, that was very close between them. Now, Snowflower in particular, you have to highlight his hesitance on the flash for good reason. He was waiting for the binding. The second it was gone, he flashed after. That keeps him alive and actually keeps it as close as it currently is. But good moves from EVOS to go down there at all.
Yeah, there wasn't even a Trundle pillar, I believe, at the start of that. Stonmage not actually attacking Warzone. Looks like he's just helping to push the wave.
Trying to get a good back timing there, but you can see Warzone not scared at all. Backs up just enough to dodge a skill shot, starts auto-attacking back, firing back, clearly comfortable on this champion. Now Yujin, red buff falls off just in time for him to look for this invade here. Make it test Stomage, but the smite is there. That means the Raptor camp is secured. Stomage continues to jungle safely for now. And the other thing, I wanted to talk about top lane, and people started dying bot lane, guys.
Yeah.
But top lane, here's the thing. Because to me, the Kleptomancy Shen is special. It feels like Stark, no matter what he plays, has his own kind of, you know, unique twist on what he wants to bring.
And I will bring this back to the point you mentioned earlier, Zyrene, on the fact that he has the Kleptomancy at all. This is something we're very familiar with in the LPL. Of course, Flandre plays this into tanks without fail. But the other adaptation that he goes from this is not just the Kleptomancy, but he goes Trinity Force after Banner of Command and goes hard into the split push, controls the enemy tank, and keeps him down so that he's free to teleport if he wants, but they never can. So that's the style of play that we see from a lot of them in the LPL, and I hope to see something similar here.
Is there a Titanic Hydra in the build at all? Or a TMS?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
And we're going to see a lot of wave pressure here, and we talk about wanting to keep top laners down. That is kind of Stark's MO, at least from what we saw last game. Fabulous. Even when he finally found the time to farm, didn't really ever get to just play alone. You know, get to sit on his island. You can see 4K plus A at 15. Just crazy how much was put into getting Stark ahead.
Well, the jungle proximity is insane. That means that 1/3 of the time in the early game that Yijin had in the first 15 minutes, he spent top lane. So he was basically, I'm farming my bottom side en route to go to top, because 1/3 of your time being spent in a single lane is actually a lot in that early game.
Yeah, think back to your pre-level 30 experience in League of Legends where you had to go duo top because you didn't have enough runes to jungle. That's basically what they're doing. This is basically a duo top lane on the side of EVOS if they're given the opportunity. Yijin, though, has mixed it up this game. He's already put attention bot side, and it does seem like they're content to leave Stark alone in the 1v1.
Yeah, very curious to see that as well. Strategically from them, perhaps they've learned in their time between the VCS finals to now how to play towards the other side of the map, or that they knew they had to play around it as the meta started to dictate. So we'll have to monitor how it actually goes in this game, their adaptation to the strategy. We saw it successful playing their old style in that first game.
Ooh, shoving the wave. Warzone is just trying to push GBM out.
We can move that. There we go.
Yeah, wants the back timer, you can safely say, runs himself out of mana just to force, but unfortunately Vladimir not really limited in the same way. I'm concerned though, Warzone doesn't want those 2 creeps, just wants to go back.
He wants his upgrade as soon as possible. You need to be able to rush that once you get your first 2,500 gold, or sorry, 1,250.
Yeah, he actually gets the boots as well, so he's not in a bad position, to be honest with you, in the mid lane here, Warzone.
Now, gentlemen, looking across at the CS differences, it feels like Zaynot is starting to catch up, but it's an even wave. He's already down 5 here. That said, the gold's still just about even. Actually, in his favor, despite being down CS, they have to assume cannon minion. Have to assume that someone missed one at some point on the opposite side.
Yeah, the cannon minions mean so much. I'm glad I'm a jungler because it would just tilt me off the face of the earth. If I missed 2 in a row, especially.
You don't take the minion dematerializer to run in and knife the cannon from your laners?
No, I don't. But look at this. Zaynot's actually still going to go for the Rage Blade build just because it's so potent. So it looks like the Fleet Footwork was mainly just to kind of survive the early lane phase and then be more effective later.
There is still a chance that he goes for the AD afterwards, though, Zarian. I will give him the benefit of the doubt there. Just depends on what he's feeling, because, you know, it's really hard not to go Guinzu's Rage Blade as a first item as Kaiser.
Super good.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll be the Death Stance immediately after, or if he'll go for the Runeance Hurricane build into Death Stance or Essence Reaver. There's a lot of different paths for her.
Yeah, one of the exciting things about the champion, we so rarely see a champion with a ton of diverse build paths, but Kai'Sa is kind of unique in that regard. Level 6 now coming in for the bottom lane, so maybe we'll see a little bit more action centered around there as Zaynot now can reposition with the Killer Instinct. Still, though, a much slower game, gentlemen. 8 minutes in.
They saw that. They could actually... That's better from Stomage. I was going to say, if you're EVOS, you wait. Give it 10 seconds, let him take some damage to the Infernal Drake. That hurts a lot, and then just collapse.
And you know he's level 5. He cannot save himself in that scenario. Do use the power of the Infernal Drake to at least hit Ron OP once, so it's not a total loss, guys. Game of small advantages.
Take what you can get, but we've been talking right now so far for the 8 minutes in this game, and there hasn't been a kill, whereas in the last game, it was off to a really aggressive start. So there's a stark difference here, and a lot of that is the fact that they don't want to play to that top side where Stark is. So they're making sure that they're playing to other parts of the map, and they can use the Shen ultimate to go elsewhere.
And interesting to see as well how that once EVOS, you know, they have this momentum in the series. They come in fast and hard, and they get that win, but they've slowed it down this game. I wonder if this is the difference of comfort picks. You know, we know they're trying 3 new champions on stage from what we've seen. Maybe not as comfortable playing 100% aggressive. Kind of looking to show us more from their style, it feels like, in this game, too. And I don't even think Supermassive were ready for this kind of play.
I think that's actually an interesting context to provide as well. It's not that they're not practiced champions. They've clearly got this with purpose on stage, but there's a difference between practiced and comfortable.
Oh, sorry, I'm clapping because he took his own blue. Second blue goes to the jungler. The greatest debate among all junglers. Who gets that second one? Apparently, for EVOS, I want to go play on the Vietnam server now.
So you won't steal cannon minions with Demon Dematerializer, but you'll steal blues?
Well, as a
Where is the line? Zyrene?
That hurts.
Yeah, I start my blue, and if they just so happen to come over, I'll maybe give it to him. I don't ping it or anything. I'll start it. But right there, he was like, I'm low mana. You got full mana. Nope, I'm just taking this.
Hit it with the whoopsie smite every once in a while. You know? Whoops. Finger slipped. For now, though, Fabulous, actually the first one to leave the lane, try to spread his influence, going into the mid lane, but still all is calm.
Coming bottom, looks like pressuring for a siege you would have to imagine as well. Get the turret down, unlock yourself again.
He wouldn't be able to do this without that blue buff. Otherwise, he'd be low mana.
Very true,
Couldn't
Zyrene.
contest.
All right, well, for now, Slay taking the bad end of a trade there, but does manage to get a few more autos down. You can see how ready EVOS are to fight on the bottom side if Supermassive want to match them, but Supermassive playing safer, backing off.
Yeah, if we're going to joke about the blue buff as well, note that the mid laner can't do that too many more times, which is push the wave hard into a Vladimir and leave. GBM will be able to sustain himself through that, of course, even has the teleport. So they're preparing for some kind of play to happen.
Stomage coming in late, going to get a few more stacks.
And he has a blue buff too.
A lot of damage there from that Kindred in the initial trade. You can see why Yijin is backing off. Top laners are fighting, and EVOS now going for the Infernal Dragon. This may be the first big fight that we see in the game.
Oh, hello.
Stomage in the back of the pit. Ulti comes out from the Victor. The stun is there, not going to work on the Stomage. He's already forced to ult, but he's just sitting on that Chaos Storm. Looks like he will be set to fall. Lulu ult has been used. Ornn now going to come in as well. Knockback, but not going to connect. Shen is here. EVOS lose the Dragon, but are they going to take the fight?
No, they're just going to back off, but they get mid priority here, so they'll be able to shove up that mid wave and potentially actually maybe get a turret here because their Caitlyn is still standing there, and you can see they're running interference, making sure that they can't actually go through the jungle here.
Stark, a lot of base damage on that Shen.
They actually don't do too much to it. Caitlyn goes down bottom, Trundle goes mid, and so they only get a tiny bit off it, so it was just for backtimers with Warzone having no mana.
I think with just how early they teleported into the Dragon Pit for that fight as well, they had to respect it, EVOS. They had to back away. They get a teleport advantage, though. And perhaps they just weren't fully prepared for GBM to have one himself, respectively, as well, to get there when they thought they had a time.
Yeah, and even right there, you talk about the TP advantage. Stark just went straight top lane, didn't even purchase there. He just TP's back top.
Does line up with kind of the lane focus that we've seen from him. Always wants to be there, always wants to be threatening and trying to pressure out as best he can. Stomage going to grab another mark here in the early game. Only at 2, so not quite where he wants to be, but we'll take a look at this one more time.
It's really good from him to buy time. It's one of the better things that you can do with Kindred. Jump in, use the ultimate as TPs come down, and as the team collapses. Because you see they have to give up the whole area.
I'm just saying Warzone, no mana. Does have to respect here in the back half as well. Maybe I'm a mid lane enthusiast, Zyrene, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right that the blue buff just gives you more options there. For sure. I'm going to flip-flop on this one, depending on the situation.
Just go with whoever it works out for in the end. Of course, we check in again on the bottom side. 12 minutes in. Bit of a CS differential there as Caitlyn was freed up to go bot while Kai'Sa was a bit occupied. And now Supermassive putting that bot lane focus that we expected coming into this series as the Kindred does hover around. But unfortunately, Zainat, so low range, doesn't really have the same siege threat that we see from Shy, or Slay rather, not Shy, on this Caitlyn.
Yeah. Also still waiting for big item spikes, to be honest with you. Supermassive down in the bottom lane. Guinsoo's Rage Blade is the thing that they need the most. They've rushed a banner of command for top lane. They've got the Shurelias for mid, but the AD carry position, as well as the jungle, are the two places that need the items to be finished.
Yeah, both AD carries have 2,000 gold on them right now. So actually, you see Zainat in a position to go on to Slay.
Slay taking a lot of damage. Low mana. Making it a little difficult for him to get out of here. Does he have enough for the 90 caliber net? Only 35, so not in a great spot there. And GBM continues to get aggressive, has the level advantage, and putting it to good use. Warzone, you're starting to see why he took that barrier. Already, GBM starting to hit pretty hard.
Yeah, and the fact that he has that Shurelya is completed, constantly using the active in lane to just run up and just pop them a tiny bit here.
It's great.
Mostly looking at that bottom lane, though, now, because that's actually a back there from Slay. He's going to purchase, and Yijin's going to hold the wave for him.
Yijin happy to have a little bit of extra gold, and always a guy that we have to track. Yijin, you know, Vietnamese junglers, SOFM, Levi, there's so many big names here, and Yijin, no stranger to kind of the Vietnamese jungle style.
Yeah, he's third in line of a lineage of junglers that have since left his region, of course. SOFM to the LPL, Levi to NA. Now Yijin gets to come in, and he is super aggressive, and the thing that you'll note, even in this series, he's gone for the Tiamats on his Trundle, and that is the most prototypical thing you would expect from him. He wants to take the camps, wants to be aggressive, and counter jump.
And the thing I love about this graphic at the bottom is the jungle proximity. When they're winning, he actually has less jungle proximity than when they lose. When they lose, he starts hanging around his lanes like he is in this game, and that's kind of the example of if he's not able to contest the jungle, he walks straight down the lane to try and force his team to get some type of advantage here.
And it's not always for ganking, it's for presence, it's for counter ganking, and in this case, it's for pressure. So he doesn't actually set himself up to gank when behind, he enables enables his winning lane to win harder, and that's what he's trying to do now.
Yeah, but he's given up a lot of his jungle here, and that's kind of what will put him behind and why that jungle proximity, you're showing yourself out on the jungle, you're showing where you can be countered, and when you're up against really intelligent junglers and teams, they know how to exploit your other half of the map.
Of course, Kindred, though, still pretty far behind, as Trundle has been able to grab some of that lane CS, and while we were talking about kind of Vietnamese junglers and Yijin in specific, bot tower did go down, so that is a gold lead over to EVOS at this point in the game. The Infernal not going to make up that difference. Here comes Yijin into the mid lane to try to defend, to try to stop Supermassive from getting anything in this.
Yeah, but they're going to get that Rift Herald, so they got the Infernal Drake, they're getting the Rift Herald. This can transition into a turret potentially mid lane, which I think is the hardest one to siege because the Victor, and that's kind of what you're looking at here later, is that Victor's wave clear versus the engage from Supermassive. They have a lot of it, but it's kind of Warzone against the world when it comes to stalling.
Definitely going to be a tough ask. Luckily, has the traps there to back them up if they want to group around it, if it gets to a situation where their backers are against the wall. But right now, they're sitting pretty. They're sitting comfortable. Coming into this mid game, Shen going to have both of his globals up in just a moment. So really, Supermassive not able to take advantage of the teleport that we talked about earlier.
And remember that the longer this game goes, the more gold that Shen will get with the Kleptomancy, so the stronger he should be in that side lane also. The first item's done for the top laners, and he does rush the Titanic Hydra for wave control and wave clear. It's decent into the banner of command that you can see from Fabulous also. There's a chance that they just continue to hold on, get to that 3-item stage, and just try and tear the map apart. And that's where Caitlyn gets strong, Victor will be strong there, and Shen goes obnoxiously strong.
Yeah, but another champion that's really strong is the Kai'Sa, who now,
Yeah.
the build you go is you go for the Rage Blade into the boots, and then you get triple dagger on top of that, which will go into your Runaan's Hurricane. So this build, when you get those triple daggers, will actually get you your E evolution with all that attack speed. So it's not the crit build we were talking about before, it's more the standard attack speed build, especially since Runaan's Hurricane will apply your plasma stacks to everybody it hits.
Which is very good when you're going against a lot of health stacking champions or tanky champions, and the Shen's not resistance based at the moment, it's health based. So
Finding hits.
He's going to go in.
Comes in, but Zainot just matching 1-for-1 in terms of damage output. Has the ulti killer instinct, goes forward, looking for a little bit of a duel here. Locked up, that's the Shen ulti forced out. Here comes GBM on the backside though. Ulti to flash forward. So much damage, but the binding and stop from going any further. It's Kindred all alone underneath that tower, but here comes the Ornn. You want to stand in that circle, you're going to get knocked right up. But first blood dropping for EVOS as the play continues. Trundle getting one. Warzone on the side. Zainot in trouble. Stark not going to connect, but a beautiful use of the Titanic will bring home the kill. Snowflower hungry for blood. Look at him go! Oh! Gets it in the end. A 2 for 3. Fight going to continue though. GBM and Fabulous. Are they going to try to turn it or just run for their lives? Because Stark not so keen to let the play end. It will stop in the end, but EVOS now can look to push in on this tower.
yeah, that was super big from EVOS. Still pushing forwards, looking for GBM.
Walking back through, looks like he will get stunned up the chain. CC, so good on the side of EVOS, trading the tower aggro as well. They're walking away unscathed. They don't get the tower, but yet another kill dropping.
And it just looks like Supermassive aren't able to compete with the pressure and the collapses from EVOS. EVOS are just faster in the skirmish style, and it's actually taking them off guard, because Warzone, they weren't expecting him to show up when he should be crashing at that time.
Yeah, and credit honestly to Snowflower for making something out of nothing potentially. Very well kited from EVOS. They backed away correctly. They used their CC correctly. And then Snowflower does come in and becomes an absolute hero for them to get anything at all with those 2 kills. Otherwise, it could have been a whitewash.
Yeah, the support with 2 kills is the ultimate consolation prize. We still have to look at who got it. 2-0 for the victor. Warzone, you saw struggling a little bit in those trades earlier, but not going to be nearly as concerned now that he's building towards the Lich Bane, now that he's got another upgrade. And Snowmage is there. They will get the Ocean. That is something back for the team, but the gold clearly in favor of EVOS. 18 minutes into the game, 3K gold lead. Feels like much more control from them this time around.
Over Supermassive, who are coming in off of a 5-1 group stage or playing stage, and Supermassive had just looked so clean around objectives. And right here, Zainot, he eased for the attack speed, goes in onto Slay, but then the heal comes out. It's not as much damage as they thought, and then they have to collapse because GBM looked like he was going to try to get in there, but the binding stops the follow.
Lots of good stuff here from Ron OP. They all dodge the ultimate as well, and Snowflower gets caught by Victor, and you can see the immediate reaction from him as Warzone collapses. He's in, he's going for the kills, and it actually works out incredibly well, except that he had the ultimate the entire time.
I love this Airy at the end, just
boops him.
Find a little piece.
Little Spirit Fox, bringing it home. But you're right, he had the ulti, and you have to wonder, could there have been potentially a better use?
And you can see for GBM, that's one where if you just W a little bit sooner, you're able to clean up the fight because he ended up getting rooted by the Morgana by Ron OP, and that prevented him from going forward and getting
He's
that
going
knee off.
again.
Rinse and repeat. Here comes GBM on the backside. Killer Instinct does manage to come out.
Oh,
Spillflower isolated on his lonesome, has to ult himself once again, but they've split it up, and the Shen is on the way in. GBM looking to body block. Kindred is here. They can buy a little bit more time. The crowd alive with sounds of EVOS. Cheers coming through. Fabius wants to get something on display. Maybe he can get a little bit more. The knockup is going to come through. They are going to get it. GBM there to back him up. Stomage wants to go in, has the ulti. He's buying time for the rest of the team to move in, but Warzone is there. He is ready to go damage back. Double kill for Fab. Stark now running for his life. A solid fight for Supermassive.
And man, the Kindred just makes it so that everybody piles in, everybody's taking damage, and then it's just what happens right afterwards. Stark, though, very low.
Auto attacks coming through. He can't block him out. Yes, he can. Just enough time to get the kill back. Stark buying so much time. Here comes Warzone. GBM is going to have to back off. He's going through the pool. Oh, he's not going to get it. Warzone!
Big plays coming out of Warzone and Stark to get kills, and now, yes, they lose a turret, but they continue to fight back. We are seeing closer fights, closer outcomes than you would have expected.
And that should have been a one fight for Supermassive, but they kept going, and right there they thought they could catch Stark, and he just turns it around for 2 free kills that went over. Like right here, they should actually have even kills, and then Supermassive just took 2 turrets and should be up in pressure. But right there, that's the type of thing where GBM and Stomage really have to get control of themselves, and it feels like GBM, he's overplaying right now.
And the big thing you have to look for here while Yijin goes in is the pillar usage on GBM. Completely denies him, gives them the pick, starts it off so well for them, but they're still the ones being collapsed on. They're still the ones being routed around. The Ornn will start it all off again. Hits the Horn, and GBM finds entry because of that, and the ult finds purchase. So these kills start to drop, and they start to set themselves up. Stomage could have been so much better if he wasn't damaged so quickly to get the ultimate off, but the chaos that comes out of that is crazy.
Yeah, Zeitnot also very low, able to get inside and then save himself. But then here, when I talk about overplaying, it's GBM in the last game, he was 5-1 and 4 in their loss. And it felt like he had to put a lot of the game on his shoulders. Here, it feels like he's trying to do the same here. He's trying to carry, and now he's sitting with a 0-2 and 3 scoreline. And you can see the frustration.
This is not what they wanted at all. Everyone predicting them to be the favorites, ready for this team. Their coach has the experience against this region, against his players. He has worked in Vietnam. He knows how they play the game, but it has not been enough. Supermassive struggling, but they're going to take something that we saw from EVOS last game. They're going to look to rush this down. They have the Kaisa. They have a lot of damage here.
There's no way for Stark to actually enter. He doesn't have the Stand United up just yet. It's a few seconds away, but they pull off.
Hesitation around the Baron Pit. This is something we saw from Supermassive in the group stage. Despite how dominant they looked, they always hesitated to pull the trigger on Baron, never wanting to risk that 50-50.
Yeah, we did get to see them start it this time, though. The vision wasn't fully theirs, and by going for the Baron, they lose mid lane priority. Teleport's actually behind them.
Fabulous.
Wants to make his way in. There is the call of the Forge God, trying to disrupt. Will get to knock it back. Hits 3 members. Sight not in the middle of everybody. He can shred through those tanks if he's given enough time. Shen blocking the damage like he can. Fabulous set to fall, but they get the double knockup. Gonna look for a little bit more. Stomage taking so much incidental damage from the Hunt, but GBM, he's hitting the 3-man ulti. He wants to get slain. He's gonna get him. Heals right back up. Fantastic for Supermassive.
Big plays from Supermassive one more time. GBM starting to ramp up. The first one not so great. The second one he was countered, but the third one successful. They get the kills. Straight back to the Baron buff. Yijin is alive, has no flash, however. It's really difficult to get in.
Yeah. 4K and dropping. It's going to take a miracle to steal this. Are they actually going to be able to get it out? They managed to take it down in the end. Baron over to Supermassive. And EVO's just backing off. For the first time this series, it feels like Supermassive have a big advantage.
And the last few fights have been on the terms of EVOS. That one was Supermassive starting it off with the flank teleport from Fabulous. Exactly what they wanted, because it created havoc. GBM's Vladimir, when we saw it earlier in the play-ins, not last game, but in the play-ins, it was about the flanks. It was about approaching from other angles. And when you're able to create a point of pressure on the opposite side of the Vladimir that people are paying attention to, you give him free reign.
Yeah, and speaking of those flanks, very well done here from the Ornn to get into the backline. A teleport ward being in place with Fabulous was also just good by the team. Lulu this time uses the ultimate on someone else, doesn't have to use it on herself. And that's the easy collapse from them. And GBM, not even really flanking, just getting into the backline because flanks started to forge themselves in fights.
Yeah, everybody started going to the side. He was there as well, but he noticed the opportunity for the 3-man ultimate. And GBM, that's what you want to see, is the bounce back. He uses every active, both of his summoner spells to make it happen there. And when you're being like physically frustrated on stage trying to make a play like that, that's one that gets you momentum back.
Has to feel good after that. He tried so many times. I mean, we saw the binding deny it. We saw it get denied by the Trundle pillar. This time he gets it nice and clean into the back line. And of course, Fabulous as well. a guy who literally spent all of last game getting killed over and over again by his lane opponent. Says this time it's not about the lane. Shows up to the team fights, makes it happen, and this is what Supermassive wanted from their top laner in the first place.
Yeah, now the Victor is 3-0 as well, so he is super large, but if they can keep him away from the fights, then they should be doing perfectly fine. Even then, at 3-0 Victor, not quite the Caitlyn with the 3 kills. The damage is already noticeable, but it isn't going to outright win them the game. You see a rapid-fire cannon from Zeitnot in response to try and match the range. They're just being routed constantly, looking for places where they have a numbers advantage. That's where Supermassive will strike.
Yeah, and Supermassive, we've seen them with the Barons. They average 25 minutes when they get their Baron. 27 minutes is their average game time in the play-in. So when they would get Baron, it would only take them 2 minutes to actually end the game after that, because they know how to pressure these lanes. We just saw them transition from mid to the bottom.
25 minutes, Zyrene start the clock. They're a little ahead of schedule on the Baron. We'll see if they can keep the 27-minute average game time going. They can find it here in a win. Warzone doing what he can to clear the waves, though. This is something that you talked about in the past. Hey, if EVOS get up against a wall, they have this infinite wave clear of the Victor. A little bit more difficult with the Baron buff, but it does mean that Supermassive have to make the most of this window.
Yeah, especially with the Caitlyn traps there to follow it up. The bottom lane will be the hardest one for them to take, and usually you'll see this Caitlyn, you'll try and actually look to get past the traps if you can, but also you need to threaten the Caitlyn a step backwards, which is why Fabulous sitting on the flank with GBM may be the redeeming feature here.
And Fabulous having a completely different game than the last one. 2-0-4. We said maybe it's time for tank duty. It's working out for them right now. He's able to be very active in this game, highest kill participation on his team, and so it's night and day difference from his GP that was bullied by Stark last game.
And tank duty, but he also did kill the Caitlyn in one of the fights. He is playing this so well, has been a threat on this team. Beautiful use of the Call of the Forge God thus far. Now Supermassive going to grab yet another Dragon. Earlier, these were the consolation prizes that they lost across the map, but now they can take it with pride as they've been breaking the base open from EVOS. 3 towers, or 5 towers down now for them to the 3 of EVOS on the opposite side.
Yeah, now it won't be a 27-minute victory this time around. Of course, they will go back to base. The Baron is about to subside, but the amount of gold they just got from that Baron as well will do wonders for their itemization spikes. They should be super far ahead of their opponent.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing a unique build. I haven't seen this one before from Zeitnot, where he went from the Ginsu's Rageblade into the rapid-fire cannon for the range as opposed to the Runance, which is better for team fighting. But then he finished Mercurial Scimitar. So this actually gives him his Q evolution off of it and gives him a little bit more defensive property here. So getting taunted by Stark or getting bound means that he'll be able to get out of it, but he also has some lifesteal behind it too. Yeah. So he actually tried to get his Q evolution faster than you normally would if you have a QSS build.
Yeah, a lot of that to me is just having the lifesteal. He knows he wants it, and he chooses to finish the item to get the evolve and have the lifesteal at the same time. You lose the Infinity Edge, you know, you lose a bit of damage from that, but you keep the sustain. I think GBM's got you covered on the damage front as well.
Yeah, I would think that something like Death's Dance is what slots in there a little bit better, but because he wanted QSS, this is the way to go to get that item spike and also have your Q evolution on top of it.
Something that we look forward to see from Kai'Sa is how they adapt on the fly, how they adjust their build and make the most out of the champion. And right now, Zeitnot is doing very well. You can see him shred through the tanks in these fights, doing what the champion needs to do, not hesitating to use that ultimate to get into the backline if he needs to. Have to see if that continues, though. Always difficult the later and later we go. The Victor, a constant, terrifying one-shot threat for the vast majority of AD carries.
And that's the thing you're going to have to explore now. Victor and Caitlyn, we mentioned their wave clear, but Baron is the entry to the base. It's the entry to winning this game, and that should be the thing that Supermassive look towards in the next preceding couple of minutes to close it out. They've got a lead, but they can't win the game. It's only 2,000 to 3,000. It's not significant enough to push forwards and bully anybody, but entry to the Baron pit, the river control, that's the next step.
And of course, now that we're seeing them in control, Supermassive playing a slower, more comfortable style, more what they're used to, can they keep it that way? Can they keep control of the map? Because you know at some point, EVOS will try to force something. They will look for that fight.
Yeah, it's being ready for that forced objective. But the thing that I'm looking at here is Supermassive, they also force themselves when they see the right fight. And I'm watching GBM. He looks like he's been a little tilted in this game. He just got his groove back, and now he has a death cap on top of his Spellbinder. When he hits the Spellbinder, it's going to be 140 more AP, so he'll hit that like 600 mark that Vladimir's almost never hit because they don't usually build that much AP. They build a lot of HP. And so when that comes through, I want to see how much damage he's dealing to these backliners. So I'm watching GBM in these fights because he's the one who's going to try to obliterate Slay.
We're waiting for that Hemo Plague or the Call of the Forge God setup, but we could just see that here. EVOS still willing to defend. Slay still stepping forward, not deterred. Good use of the dash out from Fabulous means he does not get bound up under the tower. And the slow siege comes in from Supermassive, playing on their terms. 3K gold lead now solidly in their favor. 3 tower advantage as well. Almost 30 minutes into the game, Baron just around the corner, and they already have control over the top side in terms of positioning, trying to set up a vision to follow.
Yeah, and to me, it's just no one can really stand in the front line and be a tank. Stark is your one tank on the team composition. He's going to be side laning. Yijin's going to try his best, but he's too much at risk of dying to everyone that'll be stepping up to him. Ultimately, right now, if you play front to back, EVOS, you tend to lose. You lose the objectives. They're going to have to get creative pretty quickly, especially with this Baron up in 10 seconds.
Oh, my God. Okay, so if I asked you who you think Yijin is bound to with the Zeke's Harbinger, what would you say?
I would say the AD carry. I think you're going to tell me the top laner.
He's bound to the top lane. He's bound to the Shen. He's giving the Shen more basic attack damage.
The thing. That's when you know your research and your preparation as a caster is true, is when you see stuff like that. Hey, they like to play to the top laner. Well, top laner's coming to mid lane now. We'll have to be using the ultimate just to save the day. So small advantage for Supermassive, but does make it easier for them to contest this, knowing that the Stand United is down.
Yeah, the shield being gone is actually more important than the ultimate.
Wait, the ulti Stark trying to look for a little bit more. Victor, the explosive teamfight they're looking for. Stonemage's dishing out damage on the side. Here comes GBM. Free access to the back line. Exactly what the Vladimir wanted. So much damage comes through. Sightknot is uncontested. His AD carry is popping off in the midst of the fight. Stark's running for his life. Goodbye, buddy. That's the plasma proccing. Supermassive turning that in an instant.
And that could have been an enormous fight for them. When GBM got the flank, the 4-man ultimate, it looked like it was going to be lights out, but it's not exactly hitting with all of the abilities.
Yeah, so they do still have an opportunity here to respond to EVOS. The Baron should not be secured for free. They have got their jungler alive, but there's no summoner spells on anyone except for Ron OP, and they have started this Baron.
GBM bullying and threatening. Baron now falling. Is going to drop in favor of Supermassive. Big advantage over to them. Rusty, you talked about it, said this is what they need to close the game. Now they just have to follow it through. EVOS, though, not going to make it too easy on them.
Right, we just saw the team fight before from the Vladimir. Now imagine that with a Baron buff with extra items on top. They should be set to succeed here. Even towers dropping in the bottom lane before they can deal with a Banner of Command, proving to be very strong for them right now. They could actually use that bottom lane as a point to push forwards. Caitlyn doesn't have the easiest time defending without the tower there.
Yeah, the fact that this Caitlyn has been behind for a lot of the game means he's not able to kind of put out that enormous damage in the fights ahead of the curve. They usually pick the Caitlyn for that early game advantage that you keep that CS up for the entire game. Well, they were the ones who had the pressure on them. And right here, this backline access from GBM is just beautiful. He's hanging out in the Tri-Brush up top. His team survives, and then he gets this 4-man Hemoplague that I'm surprised did not obliterate the team.
Yeah, the follow-up actually wasn't there. He does a lot of damage. You can see it chunk out all of them as well and stays at full health. So they do win the fight, but you're right, just not having the kill threat there on all of them. Stark was the pickup at the end, the scraps of everyone still disengaging.
A lot of flashes came out to kind of get over the wall and get away from where GBM was. And you can see, even though he didn't land that Tides of Blood on everybody, he still had the most damage in the fight, save for Warzo.
And you have to think, I mean, this is the thing about their composition. There is so much damage. Once the CC's burned, a little bit harder to get in that backline. But you can see what happens to EVOS if they stick around, if they let that Vladimir get in. And the thing that was keeping them in the game earlier was denying GBM backline access. But it feels like as Supermassive got this lead, they've stopped playing so safe. They've stopped being in positions where Morgana can safely hit the binding.
I think any fight that EVOS starts is a fight that Supermassive are willing to take because they've been grouped up pretty frequently, or at least have collapsed very quickly. And that's kind of been the way that it's been going for them. They've been having 4 or 5 people in a single lane, trying to make sure Stark doesn't get these Shen ultimates that'll catch them off guard. And now GBM's doing the split push duty.
Yeah, what do they do to stop GBM from pushing? There's nothing besides just going straight for the 1v1. He probably can't even take that himself in Warzone. Is the strong member of the team who's being pushed down there. So they very easily attack top lane.
Oh, he's going to go in. He wants a little bit more. The Shen ulti comes out, but is it going to be enough? Buys enough time. Sightknot still getting the kill. Stark in the middle of everybody. Walks the auto attacks as long as he can, but it is not enough. Sightknot living up to the name of Killer Instinct as he pushes in. Supermassive just going to look to end the game.
Yeah, 3 inhibitors gone, pushing forward. Now they want to make a 1-to-1 in this series.
Absolutely the case. They're closing it out. Nice and simple for them. Second Baron right on schedule, as you said, Rusty. Throwing down the Kindred ultimate for a little bit extra. Taking a kill on the Trundle just to buff the stats, but Supermassive fire back in game 2.
And a fantastic performance from Fat Fabulous as well. 2-0-6 on that Ornn. Swapped it up. Wasn't bullied by the play style that was coming through EVOS. And I like this. This is a battle of styles. One wants to play to the top side, the other wants to play to the bottom side. And whoever gets to play their game is the one that's coming out on top.
And we saw how much better it looked for Supermassive when they took some of those comfort picks away, when they got their hands on that Kai'Sa. But it looked good. Early game from EVOS, they were still taking control in so many aspects, winning out on a lot of those small skirmishes. But, I mean, Kai'Sa just hits that point, and you see how she tears through your team if you're not playing perfectly.
And I do feel like Caitlyn is a pick that has to be spoken towards here from Slay. It's not that he individually is bad on the Caitlyn, but they went to bottom lane, they were losing through the jungle role early, and he was trying to get to the bottom lane to pressure it, right? You get the turret down, great. But do they go to the top lane? Do they actually try and get the next progressive step of a Caitlyn composition? Or do they play around the Shen in the composition instead? And then what's a Caitlyn going to do in that situation, right? It's not playing around her anymore. So going into the third game, I think that there is some draft to consider once again for EVOS.
Yeah, I think the Shen, it was a good experiment, but I think it's something that you can't really have Stark on. They played too much of that top side, and I think if there's anything you can look at this game and go, this is pretty indicative of the style. It was that Zeke's being bound to the top laner instead of the AD carry when the top laner is playing this tank. That to me is like when you're playing duo queue and you're jungle top. He's the one who's getting it, but in a team game, you need to buff up the team at the points that need to be stronger, like that AD.
Have to see how they adjust, but to get their thoughts on Supermassive's win, let's send it over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.